Good afternoon, everybody. We hope you're enjoying Horse Expo this year and all the shopping and fun things going on. Kylie and I are very pleased to be a part of this fun feature, the Horseman's Hot Seat.
Yes.
And who we have for you right now is a very accomplished woman. Her name is Leslie Reid.
Yes.
Dressage rider. Has extraordinaire for sure. She has accomplished big things. Leslie is from Langley, British Columbia, so a fellow Canadian.
Yep.
And I would like to get right into who Leslie is, what she has accomplished. So I'm going to let her tell you because she'll tell it best.
Yes.
So Leslie, what are some career highlights for you?
My career highlights were 3 Pan American Games and 3 Olympic Games and 2 World Cups. And the World Cup is the freestyle part of it where you do it to music. And in the Pan Americans, I had really success. We got a gold medal and 2 team silvers. So that really was the highlight, is the Pan American Games.
That's incredible. And were there any horses along that journey that really stood out to you as horses that were special?
Sea Fox, I had a chestnut Dutch stallion. He really was my international horse. When I was in Europe preparing for the games, he had a lot of success in the competitions in Europe. He got sick for his Olympics, so that was an unfortunate thing right before the Olympic Games. He had problem with ulcers, and in that time we didn't really know about ulcers. So he didn't actually get to go in '96 because he had an issue with his stomach.
Oh, that would have been a tough thing when you put in all
Excuse
that training.
Me, exhibitors looking for the owner of a white Chevy pickup, license BKK 3764, Bravo Kilo Kilo 3764. It appears your dog is in distress. Could you please check on it? Thank you.
Where did you get Sea Fox? How did you come across him?
I had gone to Europe, and this was my first time there, and I had actually chosen a chestnut gelding for myself that was not a very attractive horse and a little bit difficult horse, and he was only 3, but I could afford him was the point. So then a friend of mine was with me, and she actually wanted a jumping horse, and she saw Sea Fox, and he actually originally was brought home as a jumping horse. And then she had some family issues, and I liked the horse so much that we ended up purchasing him from her. He actually was blind in one eye. We did buy him with a small cataract, and that cataract grew over his life. And really, when I was competing him in Europe and all the games, he could not see out of that one eye. And it absolutely did not affect him. He had a super character, and nobody knew because the eye stayed quite normal, but I knew.
You knew, and he must have had to trust you a lot.
Yeah.
Speaks a lot to that bond you had with him.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, did you say, was he a stallion or a gelding?
He's a stallion.
A stallion, okay, I thought so.
Yeah. Very, very good character. You wouldn't have known he was a stallion.
So how many years did you compete on him?
I started him as a 4-year-old, and he competed till he was 17.
Wow.
And he actually did very good Grand Prix tests at 17, and then I thought, it's enough. And I actually gave him to some of my young riders to learn on, and they got to take him through a test at a much lower level. So it gave those riders a really nice opportunity to get a feel for what it should feel like, because he was so soft and light and cooperative.
Yeah, I just think the value for young riders being able to sit on something that knows the right thing, and so they can start to train their body to feel it, is such a gift.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with teaching riders is, how much pressure you put on and what is the timing. And a good horse will give them that feel, and then it's nicer for that younger horse if they can transfer it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal, to be able to feel it and then offer it
Right.
to the other horses that are in the mix.
Leslie, I'm curious because you've achieved the pinnacle in that discipline. Who was the influences in your life? Like you said, you went to Europe. Like you must have trained with some tremendous people and maybe had some mentorship, did you?
Yeah, I started here with a man called Dietrich von Hopgarten. He's not with us anymore. He was very, very good with the basic training. He was trained in Europe, and really, when you have the opportunity like that, I was lucky because he could teach feel. And I think a lot of instructors don't teach feel, they just teach the mechanics of how to ride the horse. But he was so interested that you absolutely had the right feeling for every single gait that the horse goes through and how much pressure. So I had that basic, and I think it's really important for riders today to start with a person that's one of their main interests, is to teach a rider what it should feel like and pressure and timing. In Europe, I went to Christelot Boylan and Udo Lange, and that was great, but you're just like anything. When you get to watch top competition in Europe and you're riding there amongst the best in Europe, that's when you learn the most. I mean, you have your lessons at home, but when you go and watch those top riders, you can see their feel and timing and what they expect of their horse and their clarity of their aids. It's amazing, and that's where I got the most from riding there.
Yeah, being surrounded by that quality and being able to soak that up on a consistent basis sounds like it has a huge impact on your ability to develop.
Raises the bar, right? Just like skiers or any top competitors, you need to go where the world's best are, even if you can't afford to be in competition with them, just to go and watch how they ride and how they train and what they expect. That was amazing.
It sounds amazing.
How many years of training did it take to get to the Grand Prix level?
He was 4, so I'd say I was there at 10 years old and not really solidified where I thought, okay, I can go in and do my best test till he was 11 or 12.
Okay. How about for you as a rider? Like how many years to get the skill level and all of the things that are required?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you, if you don't mind me
yeah.
asking, when you got to that level?
Probably I started really being serious at that level in Europe when I was about 35. Yeah. So I was jumping up before that, so I did a switch there. And yeah, I don't even know if I'm that good at the level yet. It's one of those things. You know how to ride the level. Yeah, but I never really think I'm that good at, and every horse will tell you, yeah, you're not quite good enough, are you?
I've
They
had
sure
those
do.
moments,
Yeah, right.
yes. I am tracking with you.
Yeah.
That's good. You know, you've mentioned soft feel and the feel that you were lucky enough to have taught to you right at the beginning of your career. I'd love to hear from you. How would you define a soft feel with horses?
I think it depends on the horse, of course. Like right now, I have a nice little mare, and she only needs very, very light pressure. She doesn't like it. She'll tell you, okay, that's the right amount. And she's actually got a great personality and will like go, no, don't go there. Yep. And then I have my other horse is a big, not so intelligent gelding. So it's a completely opposite, where I have to say, this is how much pressure I want to make you go from my leg, or this is how much pressure I want to make you turn from my hand. And then when he doesn't acknowledge just that much pressure, I have to make a correction. And it's just a lot of repetition till they understand the soft feel. But the different horses with their different personality and body mechanics, some are so much easier to teach that soft feel than it takes a lot of time to teach your heavier, slower ones, sometimes that soft feel. But lightness in the hand and lightness to the leg, we have to make them go really closed with the hind legs under, and we cannot be kicking them, because then they get upset and tense and rigid, shows up in the mouth and the hand and the tail. So you have to develop the whole way that soft feel, that they get the strength, and you don't end up at the end of the road with a horse that really doesn't like the job.
That's very true. Yeah. I mean, you can get something done, but it's the way you go about it
Yeah.
that affects the quality of the finish. Yeah. Leslie, we were wondering I suppose maybe the question could be split into when you're looking to purchase a horse for a client, what kind of things are you looking for? What are maybe some red flags to avoid? What's the process that you go through?
Um, I, I look a lot of times, we deal with a lot of amateur ladies, and a lot of them are small. And a lot of times I look on the websites for a horse that's some type of cross, and it's not too big. A lot of times the cross of Andalusian with something, if you can find a really nice typey one, which I have, I actually like to go and look at those, because if you go to the sales, the warm blood sales, a lot of times you're just going to buy something that's going to scare those ladies. It's too much power, they're too athletic, they're too quick. So it's matching the ability to the horse, and make sure the horse has nice enough gaits that the person can score a decent score if she decides to go in the dressage test. But at the moment, they're breeding such athletic animals, you have to be really, really careful when you go to select a horse for somebody that they have that riding ability. Most people don't. I don't even like it anymore. Like the 4-year-olds that they're breeding, they're so strong and so powerful that you really have to then, match a character if they've got a nice character. But a lot of them are just really, really way too sharp for people who are trying to learn dressage nowadays. I'm not an auction person. I don't think they're given their best side then, so they're too nervous, and they usually put the dressage horses in side reins, so they're over-controlled, and you don't really get to see the nature of the horse. So I would rather see them in an owner's stable right away, no tack on, even in the stall, and then even turned loose, you get an idea of its nature, then tacked up, bridled, saddled. Does it want to bite you or do anything when you tack the girth up or bring the girth up? All that led to the ring. Does it go to the mounting block? Does it take the person 5 minutes to get to the mounting block? All matters. And if any of that shows up, and I have a lady who just wants to pleasure ride dressage, I usually say, no, that's not going to be that pleasant for you. So that's all important to me when I go and look for a horse, all that beginnings things. And then smooth to ride, cooperative when they try to ride, even when they're not being perfect with their aids.
Almost like it sounds like a depth of grace in the horse too, like just being in all of those different facets. I mean, the amount of time we spend actually in the saddle is important, but we spend so much time with them
Right.
outside of the saddle as well. And so being able to enjoy them in all of those spaces.
And the
makes a ton of
history's
sense.
so important on a sale horse. You don't know really where it's been or what it's done, so it's important to find that, because it might have been a problem horse at one time, so you have to ask the right questions. Has it been from dealer to dealer to dealer? Then you've got to ask the question. I like them owned by 1 or 2 people, and they've owned by the similar type of people which I'm buying for. But I've gotten in real trouble sometimes with dealer to dealer to dealer. And then I go, well, now I know why.
Right, there must have been a reason
Yeah.
there.
That's a really a good observation that it's the same kind of person that owned the horse and was getting along with it
Yeah.
to the client. I wouldn't have actually thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense.
It's hard for horses to change people. I mean,
that's
some of them
true.
are more casual in their mind about, okay, go ahead. But some of them aren't. Some of them are more connected to the person than you actually will ever see till you've had it for a while. And so it's been with its one person. And even if it's a quiet horse, it knows that person. Change people, and you have to give it really a bit of time for reconnection and not upset it or stress it with all your new stuff, right?
That's good. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if we miss that, how important that is to horses when their herd changes or like their people change, how much they get used to how things go, and yeah, just don't always value or honor how much that matters to them. So to give them that time.
You can usually see it in their face. Like I've seen that with my horses too. All of a sudden when I leave, like I have now, and one of the girls takes over, you can see it in their face. They're going, okay, well, what's going on here? Because I do all my own things with my horses, tack them up, and I just have some stable help. But when I completely change and they're handled by another person, I can see it because I know them so well in their expression.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially if you go to walk away from them and you hand them to somebody else and they're still like,
That's right. That's right.
are you really walking away?
What's happening now? I wonder, Leslie, could you tell us how does a horse look and feel when they move well? So when you're looking for movement and, just especially if there's around the role of self-carriage and how that plays into what you do with horses, could you tell us more about that?
When I turn a horse loose, if I'm looking at it, I like it to be quite elegant and already see the self-carriage in it. Some of them you'll turn in the round pen and they throw their neck down on the ground and they thump around on their front legs, and that's exactly what we don't want. But we all think we're great and sometimes can change that situation, but it's hard on the horse if that's their natural ability. But if a horse goes into the round pen and it's really light-footed and its neck is pretty, it comes higher out of the wither, and it just looks happy in its movement. A lot of them don't, but if it goes out there and it's a bit athletic, turning, stopping, can canter around the round pen without a big problem. So that's the first thing to look at, because I think if that's not there, the self-carriage isn't going to be there, because you add the rider and then it's already got a balance problem within itself. It causes you some difficulty. Not that it can't be changed. I mean, it's a project, but self-carriage for a dressage horse is huge because that's where the points come from. You don't get the resistances in the mouth. You don't see the tail. They have easy time going sideways. And of course, eventually we do the piaffe passage, so it has to be light-footed enough to be able to bounce.
Amazing. I just
Picturing it.
I know. As you're describing it, I'm picturing things, and it's just beautiful.
So next we were wondering, what is your favorite breed of horse and why?
I don't think I have a favorite breed. I've sort of, I think, touched on them all by this time. In dressage, the warm blood is definitely your most successful horse, just because they have the power to easily produce the cadence that we need for, and the suspension that we need for the trot and the canter. And I have done a very good Andalusian, and he was very talented for the gaits of dressage. Sometimes it's not so easy to find one that moves well enough to compete with the warm bloods, but they are out there, and they are really intelligent. Like the ones I've had are quite smart. Some of them aren't that cooperative, which I think some of them I've seen why the Spanish men ride them. But if you can get a cooperative one and a really good mover, they are really intelligent to train. At the moment I have a Dutch harness horse, a little mare, and she's very intelligent, and she's a better shape than most Dutch harness horses. It's easier for her to do the gaits. And she is really sharp, because from the Dutch harness horses, they want them really sharp, like the saddlebreds in the carriage. So they're quick and fast. They have to think fast, because four of them sometimes are pulling a buggy. And you can feel that in her mental state sometimes when you're asking her to do things. Sometimes she wants to do things too fast and too quick. So it's all those different. It's been fun, because I was with the warm bloods, and then I thought to myself, I want to try some different breeds to doing the dressage and just see what it's like. So I did that. We can't go too far the other way, because they have to have their front legs longer than their hind legs. So some of the breeds don't have that. Then it's not fair if your front legs are short and your hind legs are long. You just end up jamming their back vertebrae up, and that's not fair. So they have to have a certain
confirmation
for
sure.
it, right?
Yeah, that's great. I would love to know a little more about what it is about horses that made you want to make them your profession.
I think I grew up on a farm. My mother and my father were interested in horses, so I had a connection to them very early. I wasn't sure I was going to do it as a profession. I went through to university and went through and did recreation and some other things. And then I went back and I started teaching kids at the farm, and then it just grew into that. And my mother was actually a horse dealer in a way. She liked to buy and sell horses, so I had a lot of different horses come in and out. Sometimes they were a little difficult, and I was the one that had to ride them, and I got piled on my head a lot of times. And then again, I was going, maybe I don't want to do this. And then I did get a couple of nice horses out of that system, and I thought, no, I really like them. And just the connection grew from there. And I am very competitive, so I started with the jumping, and then I went to the dressage. And I didn't have a top horse, but I always had a nice enough horse to get in there. So then it grew from there.
Leslie, what do you think the ingredients were that you obviously have that made you able to stick in there through, like you said, there's times when you second guess. You know, we all know if you've had horses, it's hard sometimes, and you feel set back, or your favorite horse dies, something like that. How did you manage that and get where you are today?
Well, I hope at the time that you really think you want to do it, it goes through your mind that you have a nice horse and go, yeah, I really would like to try to go further with this horse. But you really have to live it and breathe it, make a lot of concessions, that whole list. And if you're going to just step in there with 1 foot to do that upper level, that high performance, it's not going to work. So it's, the Germans say, who has the bite for it? It means how badly do you want it? Or can you basically give up everything and go for it? So that's the mental part of it. And yeah, a lot of people don't want to do that, and that's fine. That's just not how it works for them. But the ones that really make it, there is such a determination. You can see it in their face when they ride. I mean, I think with barrel racers on the road like that, there's such a determination. It's going to get done. So that's the mental aspect of it. Same thing for us, too.
Yeah, that just feels like it's, there's something almost deep down. I think of the difference between an extrinsic motivator maybe wanting to achieve that, get that ribbon or get that outcome versus the intrinsic motivation of just wanting to improve, wanting to do well, be excellent, and hopefully you get those results. But that drive probably has to come from both inside and outside to really make it that far.
Well, and you could see it in those Olympic professionals, even skiing or whatever. You could just see it in their face, how dedicated they are and how determined they are, because that's a whole different league.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences, your stories, your wisdom with us today. Flew by. I can't believe that we're already at the end of it for today, but thank you so much. Before we let you go, though, could you tell us just if anyone wants to come find you or see more of what you're doing this weekend, what do you still have coming up for the rest of the weekend?
I still have the lecture over, and it's about training a dressage horse. It's just straight lecture about training a dressage horse.
Great, yeah. And then
and
anything,
tomorrow is the lessons again.
Perfect. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so that's where you can
Do you
find
have a
more.
booth, Leslie?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry?
Do you have a booth
No.
as well? Okay.
Perfect. So if you want to catch more of Leslie, check out the lecture and her lessons tomorrow. And thank you again so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.